Big injury news, CJ.
Oh, no.
Big injury news in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark is going to miss the next 2 weeks with a quad strain, at least the next 2 weeks. And if it were to be exactly 2 weeks, that would be 4 games that she is going to miss at minimum. In the WNBA season, 4 games feels like a century. 2 weeks in the WNBA feels like it is a long period of time because it feels so much more condensed. But you're right. It is only 4 games. And when you look at what those 4 games are, it's 2 against the Mystics, it's 1 against the Connecticut Sun, and it's 1 against the Chicago Sky. So it does present an opportunity for the Fever to see how they function without Caitlin Clark. It does end an absolutely crazy streak for Caitlin Clark, who had appeared in 185 consecutive games between her career at Iowa and her time with the Indiana Fever. 139 games with the Iowa Hawkeyes. She never missed one. And 46 games with the Indiana Fever between the regular season, the postseason, and the beginning of this regular season. She has also not missed a single game. In fact, she has not missed a single game since she was a sophomore in high school back in 2017. Caitlin Clark will miss her first game since 2017, which is absurd. It stinks for what is I won't even say one of, the biggest show in the WNBA. I was even looking at the schedule for tonight's games in the W, and not one of them is on national TV or one of the big streaming systems, so you have to have League Pass to get into the action of tonight. But you want to know what game is? Tomorrow's game between the Fever and the Mystics. It's on NBA TV, and Caitlin Clark will not be in the mix of that. You do have to wonder if this is something that has been nagging her. Stephanie White said it was a new injury, but she did have something going on with that leg in the preseason. And I remember even leading into that game that was played at the University of Iowa, there was some question on would Caitlin Clark be able to play. Of course, she wasn't going to miss the game that she was playing at her alma mater and those early games for the Fever. But now she'll be forced to sit for a bit. And you wonder if it contributed to one of the worst stretches that we've seen shooting-wise of her career. After going 0-5 against the Atlanta Dream in their second to last game, then we get to the game over the weekend between the Fever and the Liberty. She missed her first 7 threes that she took in that one, and ultimately 2 of 11 overall from 3, 6 of 18 from the field. We'll see if this is something that was impacting her, and once we hear from Caitlin Clark about it, I'm sure they'll downplay it, but ultimately it wouldn't surprise me if it was hindering her a bit. But when we do get to that Liberty Fever game too, the defensive strategy from the New York Liberty was spectacular. Like, in terms of figuring out how to attack Caitlin Clark, I saw a really good video on TikTok from a creator named Jackson Basketball Nerd. But he went through play-by-play and showed essentially what the Liberty were doing and called it the Caitlin Clark rules, and said how Sandy Bordello basically established how you can limit Caitlin Clark to the best of your ability. And granted, it helps that she has a defending champion team behind her that has a defensive structure. You have a 6'6" Jonquel Jones who can get out at the perimeter and can also guard Caitlin Clark, which is a luxury that not every team has. But in terms of forcing Caitlin Clark to constantly go right, like, Caitlin is so much more comfortable going left. And if you go through and look, I mean, they consistently were trying to force her to the right side of the court. They were picking her up full court often, just trying to make things as difficult as possible, not just as a scorer, but also as a facilitator. And for the Liberty, it worked. Now, it was a close game that went down to the wire and lived up to all of the hype going into that matchup between your defending champion, New York Liberty, who have started the season looking very much like the team to beat yet again in the league, and the Indiana Fever, who are one of the teams on the rise, who rebuilt their roster for this reason to move into contender status. You lose by 2. It's nothing to, like, some people were losing their mind. Like, oh, this is the end of the world. No, it's not. I saw a team that I was very encouraged by when it came to the Fever, even fighting through some of those Caitlin Clark difficulties.
Decision to move Bonner to the bench is a big one to say, hey, you know what? We've got Natasha Howard and DeWanna Bonner. We don't want to, we would love to play one at the 3, one at the 4, but Bonner is so much more effective as the 4. And so you bring her in off of the bench, and think about what that does for you from a power forward and forward front court standpoint. Now Breanna Stewart is like, oh, thank gosh, Natasha Howard is out of the game. I can finally get wait a second, DeWanna Bonner is coming in. What are we doing? How do they keep having people to run in here? And so when you play the Liberty, when you play the Lynx, and you play Nafisha Collier, when you play the Aces and you play Asia Wilson, there's no easy matchup for anybody at that position because you've got true stars and defensive players out there on the court at all time at that spot. So you're not going to allow anybody to get to cooking. And then so that's a big decision. Mitchell played so well in that game. To me, they are close. They were close in that game. And I think they're
close. They missed so many layups in the first quarter, too. If you had just made half of the layups that they missed in the first, you're out to an even bigger lead. I
will say, Jonquel Jones, cool, she can get out there on the perimeter. Caitlin Clark goes by those players. So that is, and she, to her credit, Jonquel's credit, played great defense. Caitlin Clark was not able to go by her. That might be because of the injury.
Right.
Like
so that's the thing.
Like,
is it the injury but here's the other piece of it. Now she has an opportunity. This is evolution of a greats game, is learning how to go right, to be comfortable going either direction. And I thought opportunities like the game against the Liberty kind of expose that in a way, whether it be injury or schematically.
But usually when she goes right, so she goes left and she's stepping back and there's nothing you can do with that. She's pulling up and there's nothing you can do with that. Usually when she goes right, she's much more aggressive going to the basket and finishing. And if she doesn't have the explosiveness to go by people, she can't go to the basket and finish.
That's a good point.
Whatever you got to do to try and slow this person down, good luck to you.
Well, if you're asking fans what they're slowing her down at the end, it was a very clear foul.
It wasn't.
By Natasha Cloud.
It's a foul right here. That's a foul.
We are always going to get controversy at the end of a game. I think it was a foul.
You think the foul on the deflection?
Yeah, I think the foul on the deflection. I've seen other angles. I think we have one more angle to watch.
There's a foul there.
And I think that's a foul.
You think that's a foul?
I think she gets her arm.
I thought she got all ball.
Here's the thing. Most refs aren't going to blow the whistle in that situation. And I understand. The frustration that I think comes the most with officiating is the inconsistencies of officiating. But listen, this is not unique to the WNBA. Although I do think it's a little overexposed, and it is a problem that the league has right now, especially when it comes to the perception of the inconsistencies of officiating. Because you did have a situation where a play before that one, Lexi Hull gets called for a very soft foul that if the Fever had the opportunity to review, which the broadcast did not adequately point out, the Fever could not review the foul on Lexi Hull. Because Stephanie White could not use, all she had was a reset timeout. She didn't have a full timeout. And you have to have a full timeout in order to challenge the call in that situation, in order to initiate a challenge. So it's not that Stephanie White didn't want to challenge that call, as a lot of fans ended up being led to believe by the broadcast, and then were kind of upset that Stephanie White didn't challenge it in that situation. She literally could not do that. Just like she could not challenge the end of the game call, because you cannot challenge a no call. And it was a no call that ends the game. And you immediately saw Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham going to the officials and trying to, ask for an explanation of what had just occurred. That official completely stonewalled them. Like, there was no conversation between them. But you see this in basketball across the board, in the WNBA, in the NBA, in college basketball. And I know right now the Fever feel particularly aggrieved as it comes to the whistle that they've gotten early in this season. And you look at a Fever team that's drawn 82 fouls, and they have had 84 fouls called against them. And some point out that opening game against the Sky as something that has offset a lot of the numbers for this Fever team. And I think that's fair, but that is only a -2 disparity between fouls against and fouls drawn. But the Fever are not alone in feeling like officiating is a problem. You watch one team, if you're a fan of a team, you watch your team over and over again, and it can feel like, oh my God, the world is against us. The officials are against us. But you look at what popped off with Brittany Griner in the middle of the Atlanta Dreams game from over a weekend. And in case you missed it, she was in the middle of her halftime interview. This wasn't even the post-game interview. This is the halftime interview of the Atlanta Dream game. And this is what ends up going off with Brittany Griner during that interview. Maybe. Perhaps.
By Autumn Johnson.
BG, right now you have 10 points, 5 rebounds. We see the Atlanta Dream as being Right now she's talking to the refs about holding. We're going to send it back to you guys.
At the end of that, we had to cut it off. She says, be effing better. But she doesn't say effing. She says the full word. So like in the middle of this interview, she says, be effing better. And then she proceeds to apologize to the interviewer. But she was so frustrated in the middle of it. And I just think it puts this continued spotlight of this isn't just a fever problem. This is a WNBA problem. And as more and more eyeballs are watching this league, it becomes growingly an issue that the officiating feels like you never have a true grasp on what it's going to be. And officiating is not a magical, like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Fix?
A fix for anything? Like, there's never going to be, it's not always black and white, as you wish that it was. It's not a clear, this is a foul, this wasn't a foul. There's oftentimes a lot of gray area. But the problem is that gray area feels excessive as it pertains to the WNBA.
It is hard. And where most of the time frustration comes in at both in WNBA and NBA and men's and women's college basketball is when there's a large discrepancy in size, when it is the bigger player on the smaller player. That's not to say that there aren't issues with players of similar sizes, but when I think about foul issues and officiating issues, it is, all right, what am I supposed to do when we've got Alex Caruso banging with Nikola Jokic and preventing him from getting where he wants to get to? How much of that is allowable before Nikola Jokic can lower his shoulder and go into the guy to move him out of the way? Like, where's the line at there? And in the WNBA, the size is vary tremendously. Right, there are women out there your size, Jessica, ask to guard people 3 inches taller than me at times, and that can be frustrating. Yeah. And if you're Brittany Griner, who is a huge human being, with some of these players who, what are you going to do when Brittany Griner posts up? I know what I do. I would also be grabbing. I'd grab the back of the jersey where the ref couldn't see it. I'd tug on an arm or something like that and hope the ref doesn't see it and just see if the refs are going to call it. See if they're going to give me 2 or 3 quick fouls before I adjust. And that can be frustrating for those bigs. I don't think that they oftentimes, across basketball, right? We're talking about WNBA, so we can keep it here. But across basketball, I don't think that we officiate bigs well right now. And it is hard because you see with Zach Edey, 7'4", Zach Edey gets a smaller person on him. They are or goes up for a rebound. They are constantly whacking at arms, and they get away with it because Zach Edey is so tall, and you just assume, hey, you've got to be able to handle that sort of contact, and that's not always the case. So if it's Griner, if it's Aaliyah Boston, if it's Collier or Wilson,
even
or
in
whomever
that
it
Fever
is,
game, Natasha Cloud had a block on Bonner on a layup that ended up being missed at the end, and you could have said, well, that was an obvious foul, but I think Bonner has like 5 inches on Natasha Cloud, and that's
you got to figure it out and officiate it much better. If Brittany Griner is that frustrated, like, come on, you got to do a better job. Real quick, just looked at this. The Liberty, I'm trying to figure out when the Liberty and Lynx, because I forget who threw it out in the chat. Who loses first? And so I'm looking at the schedules just now. The Lynx have a stretch late in the season where they play 3 straight games against the Liberty. Like, what are we, it's not a big deal now. We can wait till it gets closer. But yeah, they played 3 straight games against the Liberty, and the Liberty played 3 of 4 games against the Lynx. I think they got the Aces mixed in there somewhere. It is a ridiculous schedule.
Wow. August 10th, 16th, and 19th.
That's the end of the season. I've got to wait. And also, when is the first game? You have the schedule pulled up.
Yeah, I do.
Like, when do they first meet? Because they don't meet anytime in the first 2 months.
Their first game's July 30th.
Come on, man.
Wednesday, July 30th.
Give me that a little bit sooner, schedule makers.
I would love nothing more because they are the 2 teams to beat. That Natasha Cloud pickup, so much gets focused on was it a foul, wasn't a foul against Caitlin Clark. She was such a gem for the Liberty game. It feels so criminally unfair that the New York Liberty got Natasha Cloud. And for what? Do you remember what they got her for? What the cost of Natasha Cloud was? 7th overall pick and a 2026 first rounder. How? Anyway, great energy
they got
on
her from the Mercury, right?
From the Sun, wasn't she?
Was it the Sun?
Was she the Sun or the Mercury? I always get confused on the Sun got rid of all their players and the Mercury got rid of all their players.
85% certain they got her from the Mercury. I don't think she was on the Sun.
Right.
Well, which one was it? Because I
You're
remember,
right, you're right.
she's
a Mercury. She's a Mercury.
I was following the
She was
Sun
on the
heavily.
Mystics
Yes.
to start her career. She was drafted by the
Yep.
Mystics. Damn. What a gift. Not the Liberty got. Other big storyline from the WNBA this weekend, Asia Wilson needs some help. Asia Wilson needs some help because she is doing it all for the Las Vegas Aces, who lost to the Storm, the Seattle Storm, 102-82. You can call it the Erica Wheeler game. And I swear to God, if you had only watched that game, if that was your introduction to the WNBA, you would be convinced that Erica Wheeler was the best player in the W. In a game that featured Asia Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Jewel Lloyd, Jackie Young. But no, it was Erica Wheeler who outscored them all. Asia Wilson, as that graphic showed, is leading the Aces in every single stat category. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, which is cool. Like, you go, girl. But the fact that your leading assister on this team is averaging 4 assists and it's Asia Wilson, it's not going to fly. It's not going to fly.
Hey, don't look now, but the Dream are.
They're so good.
Jessica, you don't have to say so good.
Well,
Yeah, we're only 5 games into this thing.
they're very
right?
impressive, CJ.
Or 4 games into this?
They're very impressive.
I was just going to say they're certainly better in the standings than the Aces right now.
They're certainly better than what they looked like in their opening game against the Mystics.
Brian Howard is a hooper. Right? That's somebody who can do a lot of different things real well.
Yeah.
Offensively and defensively.
Yeah. Alicia Gray, still got it.
Still got it.
Brianna Jones, still got it.
The Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt, live every weekday at 8 a.m.